Welcome. My name's Steve Rapson, and thank you for joining us on our second episode of the Canadian Real Estate Team Show. Today we've got a few topics to cover. First of all, we're going to do a major market update. The data for October is out, so we'll do all of the major markets. Then we are going to move on to the Canadian budget that was released this week. Is that budget any good? Are we going to be looking at more inflation? That's my main concern, and then we will break down how it affects housing. So all that plus, I promised last week a market update for Hamilton, a little bit more of a breakdown. So we'll be dealing with that at the end. So stay tuned, Hamiltonians and anyone in the surrounding areas. But first, let's do that major market update. Okay, so the Vancouver benchmark price for detached homes is down 4% at $1.9 million. Apartments are sitting at $720,000, down 5% year over year. Moving on to Calgary, the benchmark price is $744,000, down 1% year over year. Looking at the apartment prices, that's sitting at $318,000, down 7% year over year. On to Saskatoon, the benchmark price is at $481,000 for detached homes, up 4% year over year. And the apartments are up a whopping 9%, sitting at $263,000 year over year. Winnepeg average price for detached homes, that's sitting at $439,000, up 1% year over year. And apartments are up a whopping 13% year over year, sitting at $296,000. Now, before I move on to the eastern part of Canada, please remember to like and subscribe. We offer data through email monthly. You can email us to request that subscription at info@canadianrealestateteam.com or visit the website and look at the market stats link and sign up there. We'll be happy to send you more localized data for wherever you are in Canada. Moving on, Toronto's average price sitting at $1.6 million. That is down 9% year over year. That took a beating since last month. The apartment price, not as bad as last month, down 3% year over year at $699,000. Ottawa's benchmark price sitting at $692,000 for detached homes. That's sitting even at 0% up or down year over year. Same up or down percent, it's sitting at zero, $403,000 for apartments in Ottawa. Moving on to Montreal. Montreal's median price for detached homes sitting at $825,000. That's up 1% year over year. And apartments are at $490,000, up 2% year over year. And into our final market, major market, or we try to cover all of the major cities in most of the provinces that are providing us data. Housing for all residential sales in Halifax is up 4% year over year, sitting at $603,000. So that's it for our major market update. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Again, we appreciate all of the viewership here. We are going to move on to the federal budget in just a moment, but again, info@canadianrealestateteam.com. If you have questions or are in need of some representation in your area, we have realtors all across Canada just waiting to help you. They are some of the best. We've vetted all of them, so please reach out if you need any help. Now, on to the budget. Okay, let's cover this government budget that just came out during the week. Canada released the 2025 budget, and it's mixed feelings as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to show you why inflation might be an issue, and then we're going to go into housing. But first, let's just cover a little bit of the detail. Here is one graphic that they included in there. It shows capital investments increasing at the exact same rate as the government's own expenditures decreasing over the next 5 years. So that I find a little bit misleading because the overall increase in the deficit that they're expecting is $20 billion. Why is there an increase in the deficit if this shows me that you should have it flat? That is very misleading to me. I'm not so sure that this is showing us everything what they're trying to do. I do have a lot more to go through in the budget, but as far as capital investments being paid for, maybe that's paid for, but there's certainly more stuff in the budget that won't be. Here is just another way to look at it. It's basically the same graph. but just showing more history as far as it is. So you have this massive increase in spending that's going to go towards capital investments such as infrastructure and competitiveness and other keywords that the government kept using, which for me, frankly, says spending. And so now that I've shown you two ways of why this is more spending, the problem with this is I'm concerned about inflation. One thing I can tell you about is when this kind of spending happens through borrowing and you're infusing cash into an economy, that creates more demand, and it's a less productive economy right now. So we're going to have a lack of supply and more demand. That usually equates to inflation. So I'd be highly concerned about this right now. I can certainly tell you I don't see prices going down anytime soon when I look at this. I think that that's completely fabricated in anyone's head if they're going to think that this is going to fix anything, any of the past problems that Canadian citizens have had with inflation. This is not a fix for it, for sure. Okay, let's move on here. This one I thought was great until I realized I need to wait until 2030 to actually see the government achieve this. That shows you the public service growth in Canada. So the amount of people working for the government compared to the amount of people in the growth of the population. And you can see how that just skyrocketed in the last 5 years. Completely not sustainable. They're saying they're going to bring that back down. I hope that they do. This would be one good accomplishment that this government has. But again, emergency A, B, C, or XYZ comes up and some things go out the window. So I don't know. I'll come back to this in 2030, but it is one of the good things that I saw while I was reading. Let's move on. I have this here specifically. I don't want to talk about trade deals. I just want to talk about how I've felt about this affecting the housing market in Canada. I've been advocating to clients and friends all year that once there's a trade deal, our housing market might bounce back. And all the time when I get my hopes up that there's going to be a deal, there's not. Now, you would say, well, Steve, this shows with the US-Canada trade deal that we have in place right now that even with the extra tariffs on certain items, overall, we're only paying 5.4%, and that's an average. Yes, this is true, and it does put Canada in a better position compared to other countries. The problem when it comes to the housing market and other markets, it's about confidence. It's about confidence from buyers or employers on the other side. And when that confidence can come back, I believe that will happen when there's a trade deal, when there's no more tariffs, or at least they know what they're dealing with. That's why we're seeing people sitting on the sidelines and not willing to move. And I do feel until there is that trade deal, we're not going to see any movement on the buyers that are waiting that can wait. Anybody who can wait right now, they want to wait. They've made that very clear. It's obvious in the days that the homes are sitting on the market and how many buyers are out there. The demand's just not there. We need that confidence to come back. So that's the only way, for me, that's the only thing I'm watching when it comes to the tariff war. I really couldn't care about the noise. It's just some certain details. So let's go on to the first part, and this is where we'll end today because they addressed home building in the first 100 pages. They want to work on affordability of homes. I couldn't agree more in general, but there's two ways that this can happen. And they want to restore affordability. This is a quote, restore affordability to 2019 levels. What does that mean? First, I'm going to actually, before I show you what those levels are, I have two ways of doing that. Let's say I had a magic wand, and it would be A, to wave that wand and make home prices, the selling prices now, the average prices go down to what they were in 2019. That's one way to do it. We could continue on the current path and it would get there because you see the prices are going down in most markets, or many of them, and all the major ones. Or you could wave that wand and you could create higher income for people. Now, government policy can, in certain ways, either get out of the way, lower regulations, or just have certain policies that encourage growth in the private markets. And that would be the way that I would like to do it. We'll have to see what this government does. It's going to be a while till we see how much they want that trade deal might matter. But any way that they can stimulate markets without shoving money into the economy to create inflation would be the most ideal. Here's what would happen if we go down in price to 2019. If that's their goal and they want to go that route, you're looking at $1.4 million for a detached home in Vancouver, down $500,000 from today's $1.9 million. And in Toronto, for detached homes, you're going down to $1.3 million by 2019 levels compared to the $1.6 million that we have right now in Toronto for the average price of a detached home. So that's why I'd rather not see equity wiped out. I'd rather see wage growth. Why not have wage growth? Why not put more people in a better position to afford these homes? That's always the answer. We live in an economy that is based on growth. That's why we have GDP numbers, and GDP numbers are supposed to usually be in a positive percentile, because when they're not, then you're in a recession, right? And we don't want recessions. We've already had one quarter like that this year, so we don't need any more of that. So that's kind of where we're standing on the budget right now, and how it relates to housing. I hope you learned something from this. We're gonna keep reading it. Like I said in the intro for the show, there's like 400 plus pages. It's well over 400 pages. So I've got a lot to read, but we will cover more of this in the next episodes. Give me a moment here. We're just gonna plug right now. Please like and subscribe. If you can like and subscribe to the channel, that would be great if you like what you're seeing. info@canadianrealestateteam.com. That is where you can email us with questions. If you want to subscribe to the monthly data update or market updates for your area, we have that as well. Or you can visit our website, canadianrealestateteam.com, and click on the market data link. Next up, we're going to do some information about Hamilton. Hang tight. Okay, so Hamilton, we're going to do the Hamilton market update, a little bit of a deeper dive, but just to start off with, like what we do in the major markets when I update those, the benchmark price for a Hamilton detached home is currently sitting at $66,000, down 7% year over year. And condos, which have really been struggling in Hamilton, are down a whopping 14% year over year, with the benchmark price sitting at $403,000. So here's a graphic, thanks to RAB, the Hamilton Realtors Association, showing the benchmark price is that purple line and the average price is the blue line. When you see information like this, I don't love using an average price, generally speaking. And the reason for that is, especially in this example, the condos are down so much more than any other property type. And that's dragging, because this is an overall price point. It's going across, down, and it's reflecting all different property types. Whereas if you took the condos out, that line would snap back a bit. So the benchmark price is probably a more accurate reflection right now. But you can see that Hamilton has been struggling for sure. You can see that sales are down 17% year over year. New listings are down 3% year over year, while the days on market has gone way up 8% to 39 days. Inventory, there's way more inventory, up 13%, and way many more months of supply, up to 5.3. That's 37% higher than last year. Now that is the number that we want to see going down. It went down just slightly, I think, in the last month or two, but it really does need to bounce back. It's been really tough in Hamilton to sell a home. Like any other market that's struggling right now, if you have a home if you're listing, if you have a home in a very high demand neighborhood, we have seen even multiple offers sometimes and way lower days on market. But you do have to, no matter what neighborhood you are in right now, it needs to be priced properly. It's better to be ahead of that than behind. You don't want to be, from a listing point, catching up to other listings. And there are some other strategies that if you have a very good realtor, they'll know timing is everything when it comes to this kind of market. You can't just throw a house up when there's a whole bunch of other ones. And if you are, you're doing it probably because you're desperate for the listing or the client is desperate to sell. And so when that is the case, if they're desperate to sell, they need to get ahead of the price. There are some people in that kind of a situation right now where it's just so tough out there, and they're not housing things. the job market and other financial portions of the overall economy, right? So those are some of the tips I have when it comes to Hamilton. Um, everything is very local. So when it comes to a market like this, you need a realtor who's going to understand how to look at your specific street and your specific neighborhood and understand what kind of supply is out there and what has been selling and what has not been selling. If you aren't hearing words like this from your realtor, please call us. We have people, well, I work in Hamilton, but we have people with this kind of professional experience all across the Canada. And there's toughness everywhere out there. There's some hot markets still, but they're getting more scarce. And so I understand how hard this can be and how much this worries some homeowners. I have people who send me listings. What about this? This house is so much lower. Oh my God, what does this do to my home? Well, sometimes and often they're outliers, especially if I know the client and I sold them the house and I understand. When I'm selling somebody a house, I'm not just thinking, let's get this house sold. I'm selling somebody a house because I intend to sell that house again for them. I intend to list that house later in their life, and I don't want to have the headache in this kind of market of worrying that it won't sell. So I don't think I've ever sold a Divey home unless it was somebody who was going to be flipping a home, and I had to know that they knew what they were doing, really, to be confident that they were going to turn it around and make sure that it's sellable even in a bad market. So that's just some of the information coming out of Hamilton. This graph is what I wanted to really get to when it comes to Hamilton. You can see here, this is supply and demand versus price. So you've got months of supply. That's the blue. And you can see in 2020, 2021, we were already going down in supply when COVID started. And it just went to such a low. So you can understand why people didn't want to move then. So you're going to have low supply and the demand was high. So the demand is what caused the price to go up. So you can also consider that price line a demand line. You have almost no homes available by mid 2021, start of 2022, and that price just skyrockets. And look how quickly it came down. When that supply came up, people saw the prices were high. People were like, yep, this is a good time to sell. And so you saw that price come right down. And look how after that peak and the price comes down, you see the supply go down again. That means that people were seeing this drop in price and they said, you know what? No, we're not going to just list when we probably would have listed 3 months ago. We're not going to just list right now. We want to wait to see if it goes back. And you can see how the supply goes up and down and continues to. And then because that up and down, if you averaged all those up and downs, you're seeing basically almost a flat price line. So we haven't been going up and down that much depending on what type of property in your neighborhood, with the exception of condos, like I started here, because that's a different story. We're going to do our own episode on that for Hamilton and Hamilton condos, because that's a matter of massive supply, massive building starts. So basically when all the condos started developing and selling pre-construction, that's been rare for Hamilton until recently. And so when you have a market going down, well, we're going to address it in another show. But you get the gist here. You've got high supply and the supply keeps going up. The supply actually crosses and now looks like it's steadily staying above the price line. That's going to continue to send the prices down. But slowly, it seems, the demand is keeping up just enough to keep the price points okay. There is also kind of, I guess, for sellers, they kind of have had enough at some point, and so some people will say, we're just not going to sell, we'll keep the price where we have it listed, and then they'll take it off the market. So you have plenty of listings who have come off the market in Hamilton and stayed off the market, and lots of listings that sit and get renewed, and they stay and get renewed at the same price point, and it just stays that way until the lucky buyer comes up for them. So that's kind of how the Hamilton market is doing right now. I will definitely have another episode with Hamilton condos probably in the new year. Let's see how the year ends with Hamilton condos, because right now they're at such a low that I would be shocked if they go any lower. I think that they must have hit their low compared to everything else. It's unsustainable. So That's the overall gist of it. Thank you for joining the show today. Thank you for staying with us through this budget update. That stuff is so boring for some people, but it's such important stuff to know, especially if you want to think ahead as far as inflation goes and being prepared in ways that can help you with your housing, because these all cross over, right? So thank you again for joining us. I hope that you have enjoyed this information. Again, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate everybody who hits that button. We're always here for you. Info at CanadianRealEstateTeam.com if you have any questions, or on the website, you can go to the market stats link and get automatic monthly updates for your area. Thank you so much and have a good afternoon.